On Thursday, the 13th of August, I am Bosin Amofai. Thank you very much for being part of this breakfast programming here on Channels Television. I am Bosin Amofai. It's been a week since the Securities and Exchange Commission took over the affairs of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, and the chaos is getting worse by the day. But let's spend today. Of course, it's just about 8 days ago when the SEC brought armed security guards to take over the affairs of the Nigerian Stock Exchange and carry out what has been described as an unprecedented and forceful change of button in any stock exchange in global history. But let's trace the timelines, as it were. Let's step back to remind you what has happened over the last few days. Of course, the removal of Funmi Okereke last week didn't start last week, Thursday. So let's go back to the final days of July. This was what happened. The stock exchange at about 7 p.m. on Thursday, the 29th of July, received via an email a query asking the stock exchange to reply to those petitions or allegations of insolvency forwarded to the SEC by Aliko Dangote, the president of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. That happened at about 7 p.m. on July the 29th. Of course, the Stock Exchange Director General Funmi Okereke, as at that time, and the Secretary to the Council of the Stock Exchange, as well as one of the General Managers, Mr. Binus Yaro, put together a response to the SEC. Of course, the Securities and Exchange Commission gave them 24 hours. By 9 a.m. the following day, which was July 30th, Mr. Binus Yaro delivered the Stock Exchange response to the Lagos office of the Securities and Exchange Commission. And at about 11 a.m. that day, Funmi Okereke, the then DG of the Stock Exchange, had an appointment with President Goodluck Jonathan on some issues regarding the capital market. Of course, Funmi Okereke couldn't be at the SEC's office, so she was in Aso Rock at about 10:54 a.m. when she was admitted into the Aso Rock. So the Securities and Exchange Commission received those response to Aliko's petition. Just about a few days later, on the 4th of August, when things begin to move very rapidly, the Securities and Exchange Commission sends SSS, State Security Services men, to the Nigerian Stock Exchange at about 7 p.m. And they took Mrs. Ibinoso, the Secretary to the Council of the Stock Exchange, to the SSS office in Ikoyi. It was a form of an abduction, and they forcefully got the woman, the Secretary to the Council of the Stock Exchange, to sign a photocopy an order to the Council of the Stock Exchange to remove Funmi Okereke. That was 7 p.m. thereabouts on Wednesday, the 4th of August, and that was just last week. On the same day at about 10 p.m., the Securities and Exchange Commission issued press statement via emails to all media houses that Funmi Okereke has been removed, as well as Dangote asked to step aside as the president of the Stock Exchange. Of course, the order given by Securities and Exchange Commission in that letter stated that Funmi should be removed by the Stock Exchange within 24 hours. That 24 hours ought to expire by the end of Thursday, the 5th of August. But what happened in the morning of exactly 8 days ago? Securities and Exchange Commission employed the services of armed security men, more than a dozen of them, to storm the stock exchange as early as 7 a.m. We were live here on the program telling the whole world that day that the stock exchange has been forcefully taken over. In other words, the SEC never waited for the order given to the Council of the Exchange to remove Funmi Okereke. So the 24-hour notice was never carried out. The Securities and Exchange Commission announced an interim administrator for the NSE at 10 a.m. and we were live here on the show to tell you that as well. And at about 4 p.m., the Securities and Exchange Commission Director General Aroma Ote says that Funmi Okereke has been removed that Thursday morning. There are a lot of questions being asked about those timelines, but we'll talk about the NSE's journey into chaos later on the program. So let's move on very quickly and see the matters arising from those timelines we've just seen on your TV screen. And these are the issues arising from what's happened over the last few days. This SEC ordered the Council of the Stock Exchange to remove Funmi Okereke. That was in defiance of an existing court order on the illegality of the same Council of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. In other words, Was the SEC asking the stock exchange to commit an illegality by asking the same council that has been dissolved last year by a court order to remove Ndi Okereke at the same time last week, Wednesday? No reasonable time was given to Ndi Okereke to officially respond to Dangote's allegations between July 29th and 30th. And there was no reasonable time also for the illegal council of the stock exchange to meet and decide on Ndi Okereke's remover. We'll move on. Look at what the matters has Oksho brought to the fore. The Securities and Exchange Commission has so far failed to act on the March 12, 2010 Lagos court order on illegality of Dangote's election. We'll go back to what Justice Akanbi said on the 12th of March, the irresponsibility of the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Stock Exchange itself, and what the government should do about both organizations. So the illegality of Dangote's election on the 6th of August last year, beware of August, we'll come to that. The court blamed the SEC and Stock Exchange as irresponsible organizations, especially their chief executive officers. The SEC ignored those court orders on Dangote as either the president or the first vice president of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. So let's move on and see the timelines for the month of August. It's been a year since the court cases started. The Nigerian Stock Exchange was ordered by Justice Akanbi Lambo of Lagos High Court that the elections of Dangote should not be carried out. Those were the decisions back then on the 4th of August last year. And that was about 2 days before those elections were held. But 2 days later, the Nigerian Stock Exchange disobeyed that court's order of Justice Akanbi Lambo. The Stock Exchange went ahead and elected Dangote as the president of the council and other members of the council as well. Those who in court defiance, irresponsible, disobeying court order. 365 days later, we're now in the same throes of chaos, the unprecedented and forceful takeover of the NSE affairs on the 5th of August this year. There are more stories to come about what Justice Akanbi, in his judgment that was publicized all over the world, says about these irresponsible actions of the Stock Exchange and the Securities and Exchange Commission as far as Dangote was concerned. But we'll revisit that and we'll show you on TV screen what the judge said about those actions in defiance of a court order. Let's bring a news track. Marco Ogun is here with us. Good morning.